Hey, welcome to Dan's Model Works, and it is part 3 of the FW-200C Condor in 1/48 scale. This is by Trumpeter, and as you saw in the last installment, let's get rid of this thing. We got the interior of the fuselage basically done, and we're basically ready to glue it together, or rather we should be ready to glue it together. I, however, am not ready to glue it together. Basically, I'm still thinking about what I'm going to be doing with the interior, but that doesn't mean I can't work on other portions. So move that out of the way. There's still quite a bit of work to be done on the engines, landing gear, basically our horizontal stabilizers are going to have to be worked on. So I'm going to concentrate on those items until I get the fuselage ready to go. I decided to start working on the various appendages with the horizontal stabilizers, and I'm not going to put the elevators on until I get them on the model, mainly because I want to droop them slightly, and the last thing I want is for one to be at a greater angle than the other one, because unlike ailerons, the elevators are always at a matching angle. Now what I've done, because I can see me messing this up, is I've labeled them right and left for when I eventually get around to putting them on the model. Now I'm not sure how much of a difference there is, and I'm not sure if it looks like they should not be interchangeable, just given the size of the lug. But you know what? It doesn't hurt to put a little label on there. Now the horizontal stabilizers do go together very well without any need for filler. However, the outside edge has this plate on them, which I think I'm going to be sanding nice and flat, because I can't see why it would have a seam running on it. So I'm just going to smooth this down so that it ends up being, as perfectly flat as I can get it. Close to perfect. Okay, so there's one sanded smooth compared to the one that hasn't been done yet, and I think it's worth a little bit of effort there. Now here we have the wing center section, and I have received a warning, and I apologize for not remembering which of my viewers sent me the warning, but one of my viewers did send me a warning in the comment section that the center section here is very flexible and that there is a reinforcing kit available for this. I probably won't get the reinforcing kit, but I'm certainly going to look to see how it flexes and possibly add some ribs or something here on my own to strengthen it up a bit. I can certainly see how you could end up with some cracking, what with such a long wingspan. However, what I'm about to do now is to install the landing gear bays, and they basically fit up inside like this. And now that I'm looking at them, I have to say I'm a little disappointed. They're pretty plain inside there. Now I have no idea what the inside of this should look like. However, I'm tempted just to basically maybe put a few ribs in there or something just to jazz them up a little bit. So I won't be gluing these in quite as soon as I thought. So what I think I will do is I'll assemble the upper part of the landing gear that fits up inside here, just so I can see what it makes contact with, and then I might basically make a piece of detail that I can drop in there and add a little pizzazz to these wheel well bays, because I can't imagine that they would be absolutely dead flat like this. Not to mention the fact that there's 6 ejector pin marks inside there, which look like they'll be difficult to fill anyway. So to cover them up, I don't think that would be a big loss. Okay, so this isn't an ideal situation, but I'd rather be showing you this on my laptop but somebody unplugged it and the battery died. At any rate, this is off of my phone, and this is a picture from a FW-200 restoration. Now, you can see this, and here's the credit for the person whose photo this is, Kaspar Semensky. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong, but at any rate, you can see there is the there's where the landing gear goes in the inboard nacelle. And if we flick along here, there is another picture of it, and you can see what the sides of the nacelle look like. And we're getting there. Once again, you can see the sides of the wheel well, that's the word I'm looking for, have some ribs in there with some lightning holes. And if we go a little farther, this is the picture we really want to see. Now recall that I said, oh, look how smooth the top of the wheel well is. That can't be right. Well, it looks like it is right. Basically, the nacelle is built onto the complete wing, so there should be a nice smooth surface up there. So I'm thinking what we want to do is basically cut away the sides of the wheel well part, and then we're going to want to put these gussets in. Not sure if we want to do that, but I think that's probably about the only way to add detail to the wheel well, because the upper surface, being the underside of the wing, is really quite smooth. So no, Trumpeter didn't cheap out on the detail, for at least for the roof of the wheel well, but there is detail that could be added to the sides. So this is what I hate about the internet, is you can always find it. No, I shouldn't say you can always find a picture. You can almost always find a picture of what you're building, and inevitably there's something that you can add or need to correct. And you know what? If you can't find a picture and you just bull ahead anyway, odds are 10 minutes after you finish, you'll find that picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all of this on both sides, with the exception of just a small part at the front. Okay, so all this is going to go away on each side. That will leave me the rear bulkhead, which will mount in the plane, and it will leave me with a strut here and a strut here to hold this part on, because we still want this to be well attached to the plane, because after all, that's where the landing gear is attaching to. And I have my doubts as to the strength of Focke-Wulf landing gear anyway. But that'll be my first step, is to eliminate all of this area here and all this area here. And I might actually install a piece of styrene over top of this to take up the full space of the wheel well, because recall from the picture that this isn't just a roof in your wheel well. This is the underside of the wing. Anyway, hopefully it'll be clear once I start working on it. Okay, that's one side removed. It was frighteningly easy. Now the other side, you know, is going to go badly wrong. Okay, there's both sides cut out. Now I'll just pop this into the plane so you can see what we're trying to achieve. All right, there we go. So I think I'm going to do two things. Like I said before, I'm going to put a piece of styrene all the way across that will represent the underside of the wing and fill in these gaps. Okay. Then I'm going to put in some ribs that are going to be curved on the outside and they will fit in here, and they will replicate the ribs that we saw in the restoration photos. And that will cover over the ugly ejector pin marks, and they will add in the detail that you should be able to see inside the wheel wells. Clear as mud? What in God's name is he doing? But at any rate, our wheel well part still should be able to be glued in there fairly solidly. So this is going to be the underside of our wing inside our wheel well. And it fits like that on the trumpeter part. And as you can see, the mounting lugs for the landing gear are still exposed, just like we want them. And this will fit, he said confidently, in the wheel well like that. And if I flip it around, you can see how that covers most of the gap around the kit part. So I'm going to make a pattern of that so that I can just copy it for the other side. And then I'm going to start working on, well, I'll glue it in, and then I'll start working on the ribs. Always remember to make a pattern if you think you're going to need a part in the future, which we definitely will. Now my part isn't glued in, but this will give you an idea of what it's going to look like before I put the ribs in. And certainly there's enough overlap that you can't see up inside the wing. And of course there is our internal view there. So we're pretty much ready to glue this in place. And then I can start making the ribs, which I'm not really looking forward to, but having gone this far. Now I was about to start making ribs, and I thought, you know what, let's put the upper portion of the landing gear parts together and set them in place where they're going to live, just so that I know that I'm not going to be interfering with anything. Because imagine how frustrating this would be if I put all this detail and everything in here, and then I went to install the landing gear, and oh, this is in the way, oh, and that's in the way. So at least I know that my landing gear leg will fit in here the way it should. And any detail I put in there shouldn't interfere with it. So this is what I need to create, let's see, 8 of per side. So I need 16 of these. Now I know I said there was 5 ribs on either side, but basically the very first rib is the front of the wheel well, and the last rib is the back end of the wheel well. And I'm not going to bother with the one at the very back, but the one at the front I am going to make those. So that's 4 ribs per each side of the wheel well, and of course times 2. And that is our first rib in place. I think it looks okay. So there is our ribs for one side of the wheel well. Now all I have to do is fabricate and install the other 4. As you can see, I've put in the 4 ribs that I decided I was going to put in each side. And I figured the ones at the front were probably a little more important than the ones I decided not to put in at the back. And there's one other bit of detail I'm going to put in here, and that there seems to be a rod that runs from the back to the front at a diagonal. I think I'm going to be putting that in as well. Just for comparison, this is the wheel well as Trumpeter gives it to you. And to be fair, the flat upper surface is in fact accurate. There's not a whole lot of detail there. You can't be too happy about the ejector pin marks, but that could be an oversight on Trumpeter's part in that maybe they didn't realize it would have been easier to put it on the other side of the part. Maybe it was easier to mold it that way, but at any rate, that's the part as they give you. This is the wheel well as I've redone it, and this upper surface once again is still flat and fairly unremarkable, mainly because it's supposed to represent the underside of the wing. Now it's actually still deeper than it should be. It should be a continuation of the wing surface, and as we look, you can see that it in fact is a little higher. But I think it still basically represents what it should. And the ribs that we saw in the photograph and the 2 bracing rods, they're in there. So, once again, this is all detail nobody is ever going to see. But I feel a little bit better for having put it in there. And I'm just going to put the upper landing gear in place so you can see how that'll look. So there's our landing gear well with the part in place. And of course it will look a whole lot better once it's painted up and the various oleo struts and hydraulics are painted silver and things like that. Now all I have to do is the other side. Well, it was about an hour-and-a-half marathon, but I've got the other landing gear bay framed up, just like the first one. And it is Saturday morning, and I still need to go to sleep, and I still need to visit my dad in the hospital. Nothing too serious. So, I think I've done about enough on this for this week and for this episode of Dan's Model Works. So, until next time, just keep on modeling, and thanks for watching.